Welcome to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast, a fascinating and inspiring journey into the world of venture capital and startups. Each episode offers masterclasses and entrepreneurial stories from some of the top minds in the innovation economy. Get ready to unlock new ideas and gain valuable advice for how to thrive as an innovator and an investor. Welcome to a special episode of Extraordinary Pursuits. For the next 30 minutes, BIP Ventures founder and managing partner Mark Buffington talks with Donnie Beamer, the Senior Technology Advisor for the City of Atlanta and the ATL Tech Hub initiative. Donnie was appointed by Mayor Andre Dickens to be the chief liaison between the mayor's office and the city's tech leaders. He is a significant force in shaping policy and programs to grow the innovation ecosystem in the region. In this interesting conversation, Donnie shares a state of the region and the initiatives that the city is undertaking to become a top 5 innovation and technology investment ecosystem. You are getting a seat at the table with two of the most influential members of the Southeastern innovation economy. Let's get started.
Donnie Beamer, welcome to the worldwide headquarters of BIP Ventures. Good to have you here. Yeah. And thank you for everything you've done for us. You guys have been outstanding at the mayor's office, and the focus on technology is outstanding. Tell us about the ATL Tech Hub initiative and how it integrates with the mayor's office's economic priorities for the region.
Got it. So if you think about Mayor Dickens' Moving Atlanta Forward agenda, there's 4 key strategic pillars, right? You've got one safe city. And so I have to thank you personally for the role you had in keeping Atlanta whole.
Yeah.
Right? With the whole bucket
coalition. Yeah. He was great on that, though. I mean, he made it easy. He put together an awesome plan. So.
Yeah, it's something that was hard to say no to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think that partnership is critical in all parts of the city and helping it thrive. But to be a safe city, one that's a government that's effective, a place that's built for the future, all that is going to require technology. And so it's important to have that. And so my mandate is to help our 29 departments, from the airport to watershed, public works, to find technology to help improve the citizen experience and their operations. But then there's this external part where we hope that technology is built here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do to give access to the talent capital and be a customer, those are priorities for us. So Atlanta can be a top 5 tech hub. And then the fine print around that is to be a city of opportunity for all, that 4th pillar. And so ensuring that we don't gentrify out the people from Atlanta,
Right.
and that we see participation across all parts of the city.
Well, it's a great plan on all fronts. I mean, like, first of all, like the safety thing, like, I don't exactly know the data, but I kind of track it loosely. I mean, if you think about every major city in the U.S., you know, whether it's like San Francisco, New York, Chicago, et cetera, have had major crime problems. But we haven't had that here in Atlanta because of that, the mayor's initiative. And, you know, he tracks and he shows us at the Bucket Coalition, there's, I think, 24 or 27 different types of crime. And we reduced all but one, and it was like petty theft or something like
vehicle thefts.
Yeah, vehicle theft.
The Honda and Kia issue, right?
Yeah, right.
And that was their fault.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but I do think
just a tremendous scorecard, and you feel it. My brother lives in Washington D.C., and he's scared to go outside, and you don't feel that at all in Atlanta. And so that's a great ingredient to be able to attract talent to the city. You don't have to deal with that. And so, and then to your point on economic opportunity for all, it's, you know, that's perfect for Atlanta. That's kind of our history anyway, as an integrated society, and clearly we can do better, but I think that's a great initiative that fits the city, and I love that we're building plans that fit us and our strengths. So
purpose built. And a fun fact around public safety and technology, that intersection for Atlanta, you know, Garrett,
I do, yeah.
Georgia Tech alum, flock safety.
Yeah, flock safety. Yeah.
Apparently that technology is involved in solving 10% of crimes across the U.S.
Unreal.
Right. And if you recall last year, around this time, we had an active shooting incident where it started in Midtown and ended up in Marietta, but it was only because of Garrett's technology alongside Fuchs, another Georgia Tech-led company, that we were able to track them down quickly and find them before things got worse.
Right.
And so I always brag about the companies that are built here. They were also featured in the Atlanta Tech Hub campaign in our airport next to you.
Yeah.
Right. So Fusus and Flock, people are looking at Atlanta as an example of how we leverage these technologies and then other initiatives like the Year of the Youth.
I'd be interested in your opinion on this. I know you've done a lot of study on this, but I think in terms of volume of deals, Atlanta is good, but it's not in the top 5 yet. And I haven't seen a study on this, but in terms of like effectiveness per pound of dollar invested, we got to be at the top of the list. I mean, I know 30 unicorns here in Atlanta, and we've got a few of them. But to your point, I mean, you've got emerging companies like Flock Safety and Stored, and things that very few people got on the cap table on. But there are so many unicorns right here in our backyard, and you just don't have that anywhere else, even in cities like Austin or clearly in San Francisco you will, but very few cities can say they punch in Atlanta's pound for pound weight class. And
two thoughts come to mind, because when we talk about being top 5, the question is based on what?
Yeah.
So defining those metrics and not just relying on the pitch book rankings and such, because of course investment dollars is critical, but there's a double click that you could probably find a better narrative. And so we're working to define that with some of the universities in town. And then what we'll be able to do is look at the metrics like you called out. So if you consider the money you put to work and down rounds, for example, in Atlanta versus the ones coming out of San Francisco, I'm sure the money's been much more productive in these Atlanta companies. And something that's been born out of I'll call it a lower availability of capital here in Atlanta. Companies are much more disciplined.
Yeah.
They grow through revenue and customer acquisition versus just building a company to go raise capital.
Yeah.
And
for sure. I mean, we study a lot of data on that. Atlanta treats venture capital dollars very, very well in terms of batting average and then outcome, multiple of outcome, multiple of invested capital. It really is a great city. I mean, our failure rate versus the failure rate, say, in San Francisco, a different mindset. Our failure rate is significantly lower, and the distribution of outcomes is significantly better. We're not playing at the same scale that they are in terms of dollars. But that's a nice tagline. I mean, I moved from San Francisco here almost 20 years ago, and that's why BIP Capital and BIP Ventures exists, because we've had such a good time of it here in Atlanta and consistently generated returns. So I think that's a great selling point. But I like the idea that we're going to try to push volume as well, thoughtfully, and attract more talent here. And so I think the right balance of that is the right message. But I know the mayor's all over that. So it's good.
We do need more at-bats to a certain extent.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether the money is just to burn or whatever the case may be, there are a lot of folks that just get an opportunity on the coast that wouldn't or didn't hear, and that's how they ended up there. So there's a aspect of what we're doing that's also talent retention. So how do we prevent someone from, once they graduate from Georgia Tech or Georgia State, one of these great universities here, we show them that there's opportunity for them to grow and pursue their idea instead of having to move to the coast.
I could name 5 to 10 entrepreneurs who have picked up and moved west because they couldn't raise the capital here, and that should never happen. Especially in today's world with distributed workforces and the like, we should keep our talent at home. So, well, how did you got appointed senior technology advisor for the city? Tell me about how that came about, and then how did he recruit you, and like, how did that all go down, and what are you doing every day? I mean, I know, but I want you to tell the audience.
No, every day is different. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I mean, there's a part of this that's evangelizing the ecosystem and modeling some of his behavior, because one of the most important things that we can do as the government is just show up, right? Just be there and let people know that we hear you. We're trying to support you. It may take longer than you want, but we are working every day for your good. And so the idea was really around, how do we grow this industry? The idea of opportunity for all. If you look at the compensation in a tech role, you don't have to be the CEO, but on average, you're looking at 2.5 times the median salary of any other regular job or the average across Atlanta. And so with that, you can change people's lives, right? And we've seen folks that go from driving Uber or doing hair to working at Google. And so we're trying to create pathways for you to either pursue a career or build a company or a new technology.
Or a new set of skills. And, yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so the idea came about, I think it was a part of his initiatives when he was building out his agenda. And, okay, so to pursue the goal of becoming top 5, we've got 3 areas of focus. The first is around perception. We just need people to believe that this is a great place to grow a company. And so many people don't know, and that's why we've done the work in the airport. 100 million people come through there every year to showcase what we've built or what is available as far as investors, some examples of unicorns. And many people don't know, like a Calendly was built here.
Yeah.
Many of you used it to schedule a meeting, right? So just trying to expose that so we'll let people know you can be successful as well, trying to make it easier to navigate, and then having more purpose-built spaces or programs, things like FinTech Atlanta or the Russell Center, which is here to support Black business, or Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, that's the only municipally funded accelerator for women in America. So those are the types of things that we're doing on the perception side.
Yeah.
And then the second area is, of course, measurement. So back to this being top 5, we're going to track how many startups are in town. So we need to increase the productivity. There was a study that BCG did that talked about what it would take for us to be a top 5 ecosystem. And something that people have latched on to is we'll need to produce about 2,000 companies a year. And right now we're at 200.
200. That seems like a lot, at least in the short term.
Next jump. So hopefully we'll get there, but just creating more opportunities, making it easier. We want to track how many companies there are, who's running them, women, people of color. We want to track how many jobs are created, but also how we fill them. Like I said earlier, it's an Uber driver that's now working at Google. And then lastly, the investment dollars. So that's still going to be important, right? How much capital is available. But the troubling thing is, if you look at that alone, we're like 15. And so there's reason for that. There's just not as much
just on volume
wealth in the city. So, and so perception, measurement, and the last area of focus is around those resources: talent, capital, customers. How do we increase the availability of those? And then in talent, we've got 4 different categories of talent that we're thinking about. The long-term pipeline of K-12, finding people when they're young, getting them excited about technology. And so something we've done for them is we've added esports in our parks and rec centers. So literally trying to find ways to meet people where they are, because most people already game, but they don't see the connection between gaming and a career, right? Yeah. So you can be a developer, you can be a designer, you can work in the esports industry as a broadcast or as a producer. So all those things are like the pathways we're introducing to children at an early age. And so that's one thing. K-12. Universities, we have a heavy emphasis on universities this year with the need to try to retain that talent. But then there's this thing we built called the Atlanta Collegiate Entrepreneurship Syndicate, or ACES. And that's Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Morehouse, Spelman, Emory, Clark, Morehouse School of Medicine. So we're trying to increase the connectivity across campuses. So the next unicorn is not 4 nerds from Georgia Tech. It's a doctor from the Morehouse School of Medicine, a lawyer from Emory, a policy person from State, and then that Georgia Tech engineer, right?
Well, a lot of times the skill sets, when you blend those together, a technologist from Georgia Tech and a business person from Morehouse, like you need all those skills and they probably end up working together. So start it early. Yeah, right.
So the skill set, the diversity of thought, because I think that's the hardest thing to bring together, right? And so if you have folks with different trainings, from different places,
different networks,
it leads hopefully to better products and better outcomes.
We do a little bit of this with Venture Atlanta, but this, like if you're living in the Bay Area or Boston, Boston's kind of lost it a little bit. They don't do quite as much as they used to, but still a powerhouse in venture. But there's like every week, there's multiple events, big events you can go and build network and meet people. And like, I'm hoping Atlanta will do more and more of that.
Yeah.
Because the community's getting big. I mean, when I got here 20 years ago, it was myself and maybe 2 or 3 other funds. I mean, there's 20 to 25 funds here now deploying capital, and it's competitive, right? And that's good for entrepreneurs when they're coming to raise money. So I think that's but you know, I thought the chamber did that nice meeting where they brought all the different funders and all the different funds together. And then David Cummings and I both left and said, you know, gosh, I don't know if this should be through the chamber or we should take an initiative and just, you know, have essentially an affinity group of funds that gets together and just talks and meets all the time. But I think that would be a nice touch just to get people talking, create overlapping networks.
So I think that alignment of everyone in the ecosystem. So if you've seen the branding for the ATL Tech Hub, it's a dot motif.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Right? So it's really around connecting the dots. All of the assets are here. And the dots are on the page, but if we can align and, you know, bring it together in the right way, we can paint a beautiful picture and reach top 5. And so trying to facilitate that is how I think we can really sum this up, right? Because we've got everything here already.
Yeah.
And we haven't been coordinated. It's not a selfish or, you know, intentional thing that we haven't worked together. But I think if we can set a North Star and sort of march behind that, try to manufacture some wins, then you'll have that flywheel and it will continue.
Yeah.
So, like, see, there's something you called out on events. So something to check out. Startup Atlanta on their website. They've got a great calendar. So they've aggregated most of the events. I'm not going to say all, but most of the events that occur in the city and even the region. So that's a great place to track where you can go to meet different people and find opportunities. And then we actually have 2 big occasions that we're trying to create. Because so with the perception gap, we need people not to just come through the airport. We need them to stop and stay for a while.
Right.
So we've got Atlanta Tech Week, which is going to be early June. I think kicks off June 9th or 10th through the 15th maybe. And we're going to have events all throughout the city. We're going to have activations up in Alpharetta, at Tech Alpharetta, and Peachtree Corners and Curiosity Labs.
That's great. If you, we need to get that calendar and publish it, because I think, you know, we've got so many, you know, we have over 2,500 families that invest through us in technology. And I'd say maybe 1/5 or 20% of them are really active and do deals, not just through us, but on the side, but they're not necessarily connected to a calendar of events. And you know, a lot of times our limited partners or investors will go find a deal and they'll say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this deal. Do you want to invest with me? So it's a great source of deal flow for us. So like, I'm like totally motivated to get them out and kind of scouting for us, if you will.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah,
we got a bunch of
hey, it's a win-win.
scouts that are paying you.
It's a win-win. But I love, like, we need to promote that more. So,
So yeah, we'll make sure you get that.
Yeah.
And then
and, well, maybe getting personal for a sec. Tell me about, I know you live in Atlanta. I know you got a family. Tell me about your experience in Atlanta and what do you think the differentiators are for us as a city in raising a family, but also being a technologist or an innovator or founder or entrepreneur. You know, how do you think about that? And I may share my own personal experience because I lived in San Francisco for a decade and lived here. And like, that was a great experience in San Francisco. But the minute we had a child, Atlanta was a 10 times better city. And it's actually easier to build and scale a business here. And it's hard. It's hard to live in a big city like that, particularly if you want to have a family and other things. So I'm just curious, how does the mayor's office think about all the great attributes we have and the easiness of life here? And like you pointed out, the airport, that makes going anywhere as easy as it can be. But maybe just talk a little bit about how you guys think about the qualitative advantages Atlanta has.
well, that is a stated goal for Mayor Dickens. He often says he wants Atlanta to be the best place to raise a family.
Yeah.
And so that wraps back to the year of the youth and the emphasis on childhood health and wealth. But for me, so I've got a 10-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son, and a wife. We've been married, it'll be 13 years in a couple of weeks. So June 12th. So that's coming up fast.
Yeah, don't forget that one.
Right? And I was like, how many years is it? But some of the things that are not unique to Atlanta, that I think are just beneficial. You need a village. And so my wife being from here, that helps because they're going to be early mornings and late nights. And so to have someone help you, and that's, thank God for my mother-in-law who can be a nanny and help step in. But we also have help because my wife, she's a professor at Emory. So we're both kind of pursuing careers. It's hard charging. It's difficult to manage life along with work. There's some things that are unique to Atlanta that I would call out. It's very accessible.
Yeah.
And so, the feedback that we get from people when they compare their experiences to big cities or other cities and they come here, it's like you can have a conversation with the mayor's office and they'll respond and they'll be supportive. And some of that is just their interaction with me. So, that's a biased data point, and that's also something that's new. But the idea is the same way that Miami did it, where, if I'm reaching out to the municipality and they can give me access to resources or point me in the right direction, that's a value add. And many other places. So I've lived in New York, I've lived in Philadelphia, lived in Ann Arbor, and also Charlotte, where I grew up. But I think that there's intentionality around this space that doesn't exist in some of those other cities. I think they're so far ahead that they don't have to invest in the same way. Like some of it's just been organically there, but we are actively working to build the infrastructure to support people in all the ways that are necessary for your own company. I think there's also our secret sauce. Two things I'll call out. The first is the diversity. And you talked about diversity of thought and people, all that can help with your, building your business and team. But there's also this diversity of industry. And so whatever it is that you want to sell, especially if it's B2B, we have it here. So third highest concentration in Fortune 500s. And for a long time, I feel like that industry diversity made it confusing to people in terms of what does Atlanta stand for. It's like when I graduated, I went to financial services. That's why you go to New York. I had a roommate. He wanted to be an actor, so he moved to LA. And then, of course, the tech guys, they go to San Francisco. But now all of that is here, right? There are more movies and television shows shot here than any other municipality, right? So there's no reason to go to LA in the same way anymore. And the same thing with all these other industries. So if you look at the skyline by Georgia Tech or just in Midtown and compare it now to what it was when we graduated.
Yeah, unreal.
Night and day.
And it's like the state bird is a crane.
Right.
I think, for my personal experience, that exactly like you said, it's easy to raise a family here. It wasn't in San Francisco. I think housing affordability, I know everywhere that's changing, but historically has been, you can buy a lot of house in Atlanta versus, what you could buy it in San Francisco or even in the Bay Area. And that was, a big deal. And then just help and support, as you said. It was just, again, night and day. It's easy to move your family here, not very easy to move your family to support you in cities like that. And the other thing you pointed out that I thought that just was shocking, and I don't think you'd have to live somewhere else to know it. But I remember, I'm actually going to call out a specific name, but I remember I'd been back from San Francisco maybe a year and a half, and I was doing venture deals, and people were kind of like, "Wait, venture in Atlanta? What are you, like a pioneer?" Like, I don't know if that's gonna, at least outside of Atlanta. But we had seen a lot of good early deal flow. But somehow I wound up in a guy named Paul Bauer's office who was running Georgia Power at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, I would never get in this office in San Francisco. And here I am, a year here and barely built any reputation. And I'm already rubbing elbows. And he really genuinely wanted to meet me, and like the flatness of the society here and the openness of people to you get in their office, you can meet them. That just does not exist in places like San Francisco. There's a real hierarchy to how, and I thought that was really different, and it really helped us kind of catapult our business. And those people genuinely helped us, and I was like thinking to myself, like, why would they take the time to help? But I think people care about community, shared success here. At least that's what I found, way more than in other places. And I think it's a hidden asset that we have here. I mean, you can go to meetings. I mean, now you're at the mayor's office, so it's probably a lot easier to get in, but you go to meetings in town and, you'll be rubbing elbows with celebrities or heads of industry, and to your point, with all the corporate here. So that's a really distinct asset that Atlanta has that I don't think it fully understands, because I think everybody here is so nice and kind that it's like, oh, this is a commonplace, but it's not like that everywhere else. And,
True. This is all we know.
It's all we know.
Right?
Yeah, totally. So, well, what, as we close out, like, tell me a little bit. So you kind of touched on plans and some of the metrics you guys are focused on. How do you, if we're going to get to 2,000, big number to 10X, how long does it take to stage that in? And have you guys started building the phases of that plan? And, and how do you think about that? And then the other big question, and this may put you on the spot, so if it does, don't answer it. But, is the mayor's office engaged in conversations with some of the state pensions and municipal pensions? And, we're one of the only states in the country that does not allocate a lot to private markets. Yeah. A tough conversation, right? Because of the Constitution. But, I've heard rumblings that is starting to open up, which I think would be a big part of achieving the larger aims.
Yeah.
If those funds and pensions are funding, not just our fund, but the other 25 funds in town, you just build that ecosystem.
So I'll call out a couple of things. I'll start with capital, back to kind of like capital customers. Capital front, we are working to improve that, or we want to engage on that topic. So 2025 is going to be a heavy policy year, and trying to make some changes, in conjunction and in partnership with the State House. So you've already heard the city, we've increased our allocation to private markets. And so we added another up to 3%, which is still small, but we got a 10% cap for all alternatives based on the state's mandate. But it's $120 million that now we're putting into private markets. And we've already done quite a few at the PE stage and level, and we're looking to do more venture. Because the other thing, once you're engaged with our consultant, they make your fund available to all of their customers, right? So it's a way to open you up to other institutional investors. And some of the places that we're really excited about is like Engage, which is a unique offering here in Atlanta. So if you solve a problem that's relevant to the LPs, which are the Atlanta stalwarts, like a Chick-fil-A, a Cox, a Delta, then they'll invest and become an early customer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how many times we've partnered, but close to 10 times with Engage. It's a great program. So it's been a great catalyst for our portfolio companies. And so it's wonderful.
And so I think that's putting our money where our mouth is to support the ecosystem, but trying to convince the state to do something similar where they increase the cap and allocation, because ours is $4 billion, the pension, theirs is 100 plus. So every percentage increase is a substantial benefit to the ecosystem. So that's one thing that's happening. We're also talking about bringing back the angel investor tax credit. So something we benefited from back when we were doing this together years ago. And then another area of interest is, those are really the two big ones, to try to make capital availability or increase capital availability and de-risk or incentivize putting money to work in this space.
Yeah, for sure. Man, if we could unlock that, and I get it's tough, like the state pensions and have been doing things one way for a long time, and there's somewhat of almost a constitutional mandate to manage it the way they manage it. But if we could unlock that in a thoughtful way, I think the benefits, not just for economic development and society, but for their returns and the health of their pension funds.
There's the diversification benefits. There's just so it's not that we're trying to put your money at risk, but I think the economic development angle, at the very least, is if you talk about the tax credits, you look at what it's done for the film industry, film and entertainment, right?
I was going to bring that up.
That doesn't happen without those incentives.
Yeah, most people don't know. I think we're producing more film and more movies than Hollywood now, if I'm not mistaken. But it's in the running, and so that tax credit had a lot to do with it. So just think of what an angel tax credit could do here in Atlanta. And our clients would love that, by the way. So hope that happens. So good. Well, what else? Just to close, I mean, anything you want to leave us with?
The other thing I want to make you aware of, because this is a thing I'm excited about. This summer, we're going to pilot a new co-op program. And so to unlock or to get to this productivity that we talked about, we need the universities to help with the number of companies that are produced. So we want to encourage young people to, instead of going to work for Home Depot, no offense, right? You can work on your own venture, and we'll give you course credit, housing, stipend, mentorship. And so this summer we're going to do that with students from Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Morehouse, and Spelman.
So it'll be an accredited class?
So we haven't been able to get the course credit just yet because we put this together really fast.
We need a strong arm for that.
Right. So I think USG will have to get some approval at that level for you to get credit, at least at Tech and State. But you just want to prove that there's value. And I think if you can make it so instead of having to drop out to go work on your venture, because that's the story that people often look at, right? Like what we'll do is, like I said, wrap our arms around them, show them all the assets in the city that they can take advantage of, like the Russell Center or ATV, ATDC. And then that way they can just, in between taking classes, continue to build their company.
Yeah, if we could pull that off, that'd be awesome. I mean, as you know, you learn things in the academic setting, and that's great, but you really learn when you go to the world to apply those things. Well, that's how that philosophy works. And I remember that. I draw from things all the time, but you don't really appreciate it until you actually have to apply it in real world settings. And so it seemed like we could figure out ways to give people credit so that they could do better learning. And that's the whole point of higher education. So hopefully we can figure that out.
So we give them those tactical, hands-on experiences. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, so with these students, we're also going to have did you watch the Adventure Prize?
I did.
The competition. So, a couple of weeks back, there's a Shark Tank show that shot. So Georgia Tech students will compete. And then there's also an ACC version. What we want to do is a Atlanta version. So all the ACES schools, they'll be able to have their student founders compete, and we want to put grant funding in their hands. And so to raise the money to give those grants, we're going to have a poker tournament.
Nice.
So if you play, get ready. It's going to be October 6th at the Signia Hilton over there by Mercedes-Benz. And so...
how big are the grants, just out of curiosity?
So it depends. And so there's this program in Chicago called, I think it's like a leap year program. So they'll give you $200,000, and they're targeting adults. They'll convince you to come, give you the money. It's dilutable, so it's equity. And if you fail after that year of working on the product, then they'll help you get jobs. But I thought instead, why don't we just do it while you're still a student? And that's part of this co-op program. Right. And so I wanted to get up to like a 6-figure check. This year it'll probably be lighter just because it's a pilot. Everything's a test. So just showing people that there's value in putting their money behind this. So it'll probably be something much smaller for the first place team. And so we'll do that. And it's going to be a part of Avant South. If you remember last year, Georgia Tech had Avant South. And it was a conference. It was centered around AI. So this year we'll have it's going to be a 2-day event that's a part of ATL, the larger South by Southwest type experience that we're trying to do in the fall. And so we'll have the fundraiser and pitch competition on Sunday, October 6th. And October 7th, we'll have a conference where you'll talk about media, sports, and entertainment tech. So something that's growing here now that we're a soccer town and U.S. soccer moved here. We've got the World Cup coming. And like I said, we shoot more film and television than any other state.
Well, I love the leadership that the mayor and you're showing on this. I mean, it's refreshing. Atlanta's had really strong city leadership for a long time, and I like the previous mayor. I know they ran against each other, but I liked him too. What I really like about this mayor is, he's down to earth. He's focused on real values, safety, how to raise families here, and also the way of the future, technology and building, real economic opportunity for people through where, through technology and all the hot fields that, give people a chance to strive and achieve bigger and better things in life. And I think this mayor's just absolutely on point on that. So, and I know you're leading a lot of that on his team, but kudos to you guys. This is I really, really appreciate the leadership, and it's been a thrill to work with the mayor on any number of things. And so he's a special guy, Georgia Tech guy. So I mean, we know he's special. So, but anyway, well, please tell him we said thank you, and thank you for all your awesome work.
Will do. I appreciate the opportunity to continue our partnership and
Yeah,
try to make
absolutely.
the city better. So,
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast. Check the show notes on our blog for the resources we discussed. You can find Extraordinary Pursuits on your favorite audio platform. Be sure to subscribe to the BIP Ventures YouTube channel and connect with us on LinkedIn, X, and Instagram so you get all the stories, learnings, and ideas for ways to thrive in the innovation economy. And if you liked this episode, be generous. Share it.